of states that could decide the election result is to unleash a blistering argument as to why any Republican, any conservative, any patriot cannot and must not cast a vote for Donald Trump.
In this election, putting patriotism ahead of partisanship is not an aspiration. It is our duty. Donald Trump was willing to sacrifice our Capitol to allow law enforcement officers to be beaten and brutalized in his name and to violate the law and the Constitution in order to seize power for himself. I don't care if you are a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. That is depravity, and we must never become numb to it. What January 6th shows us is that there is not an ounce of compassion in Donald Trump. He is petty, he is vindictive, and he is cruel. And Donald Trump is not fit to lead this good and great nation.
Wow, unfit, petty, vindictive, cruel. Liz Cheney called out Donald Trump's depravity and called it what it is, disqualifying. And now, after marshaling the political star power of one of the Republican Party's biggest figures, Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz are deploying someone who is unrivaled in the Democratic Party's political arsenal, Barack Obama.
The people who will decide this election are asking a very simple question. Who will fight for me? Who's thinking about my future, about my children's future, about our future together? One thing is for certain, Donald Trump is not losing sleep over that question. We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse.
Today it was announced that former President Barack Obama will hit the campaign trail for Vice President Harris and Governor Walz across battleground states, beginning with a campaign stop next Thursday in Pittsburgh. As the New York Times put it, President Obama is, quote, joining the final push to deliver Vice President Harris a victory, starting with perhaps the most consequential battleground state of the election, Pennsylvania, and adding to his singular star power to a coalition alongside patriots of every political stripe, the likes of which the country has never witnessed in the context of a political campaign. We should say Vice President Harris is in Michigan today. Earlier, she spoke to a labor union in Detroit. A short time from now, Vice President Harris will deliver a campaign speech in Flint, Michigan, where she will be joined by basketball legend and Michigan native Magic Johnson. And they spoke in the ever-broadening and growing Harris-Walz coalition. It's where we start today with my colleague, NBC's Yumi Shalcindar in Flint, Michigan, ahead of the vice president's rally there tonight. Also joining us, former Republican congressman and MSNBC political analyst David Jolly-Sear. And with me at the table, the Reverend Al Sharpton, host of MSNBC's Politics Nation and president of the National Action Network. Yamiche, I know it's loud where you are, always giving you the chance to have to multitask and pay attention to us while events start to unfold behind you, so we thank you in advance. It isn't just sort of editorially fascinating that Liz Cheney is now on the campaign trail for the vice president. It is politically imperative, right, that the Harris campaign assemble this coalition that is incredibly electric to all the vibrant and vital parts of the Democratic base, that they all turn out and feel excited, but that she also brings over independent and Republican women and men. And they seem to be very comfortable campaigning alongside Liz Cheney, which is remarkable in and of itself.
It is remarkable when you look at sort of all of the different things that the Harris campaign is trying to build together to try to win this race, which is, of course, polls show incredibly close. Now, for me, I just think of the last 2 days. I was just in Wisconsin watching Liz Cheney come out to chants of "Thank you, Liz" by a large group of people in Wisconsin. And then today, just a little bit off camera here, there's Magic Johnson talking to reporters, of course, a native of Detroit, trying to bring in those voters that might be undecided and who recognize him as someone that they respect and whose star power brought a lot of real joy to Detroit. It's interesting because the Harris campaign is trying to build this coalition, and I've been talking to a number of people, including Cedric Richmond, who's a co-chair of the campaign, and he told me that really they're trying to lean in to really aggressively attack Donald Trump because their internal pollings and their data shows that there are a lot of persuadable voters who want to both hear from people like Liz Cheney talking about why people should put country over party, but also because some of those voters want her to define herself in Vice President Harris. They want her to explain what a Harris administration would do, and they also want her to, in some ways, really explain again why she sees Donald Trump as unqualified to be president, which is why we're going to see more and more ads talking about sort of how he might raise the retirement age going after seniors, or how he might mass deport people who are helping revitalize places like Springfield, Ohio. So the Harris campaign is definitely trying to build what is going to be this big coalition. And there's a big tent here that she's trying to do. And she's hoping that a lot of these people who show up, that they're going to be moved to do that and moved to go to the polls, Nicolle.
It is such a nerve-wracking period in any campaign, but I want to focus on what you're talking about, the case against Donald Trump. Here is, again, extraordinary that these messages, the same message coming from, arguably the biggest star in the Democratic Party and a name synonymous for generations with the Republican Party. Here's Liz Cheney and President Obama.
The other day I heard someone compare Trump to the neighbor who keeps running his leaf blower outside your window every minute of every day. Now, from a neighbor, that's exhausting. From a president, it's just dangerous.
I cast my first vote ever in 1984 for Ronald Reagan. In other words, I was a Republican even before Donald Trump started spray tanning.
Yamiche, I picked those out because I think they show not just the power that that Liz Cheney and President Obama have in their own circles of influence, but the special sauce that they have, the ability to poke Donald Trump in a way that Donald Trump is incapable of not responding. They can goad him. They can send him off message. They can send him spiraling into days of angry, all caps, posts on his own social media platform. And at a time in the campaign season where every day, every news cycle counts, that is an added benefit to their star power.
It's an added benefit in the eyes of Harris campaign aides that I've been talking to. And it's also sort of echoing what Vice President Harris tried to do and what her campaign believes she successfully did during the debate, which is needle Donald Trump. Remember, she called him boring and said that he was fired by millions and millions of Americans. It was that kind of messaging that they felt like really made her shine during the debate and made former President Donald Trump not want to do a second debate, which is what Vice President Harris is saying she wants to do. So she's going to see, you're going to hear more of that sort of leaning into humor, leaning into joy. But you're also, again, going to be really trying to draw the Harris campaign a really sharp contrast to former President Donald Trump, because they do believe that undecided voters will also be moved by that. The other thing that I've been hearing from folks is that they want to see Michelle Obama, former First Lady Michelle Obama, out on the campaign trail. We're not sure where she's going to be, but I remember as soon as the vice president became the top of the ticket, someone told me, we hope that they park Michelle Obama in a place like North Carolina or Georgia and just have her talk to people over and over again. So there is some hope in the Democratic Party that you also see the other Obama, who some people say even delivered even better speech at the DNC, talking about the idea that former President Trump was maybe going after black jobs, going after that sort of meme and that moment where a lot of African Americans and a lot of people around the country were laughing at Donald Trump for saying that immigrants were taking quote unquote black jobs, meaning possibly menial jobs, but it became a sort of running joke among a lot of African Americans. So you could also see someone like that, because this is feeling like an all hands on deck election because the polls are so close, and because even in the last few days we saw the firefighters union choose not to endorse Vice President Harris or former President Donald Trump, which is seen as a blow to Harris because they were one of the first unions to back President Biden. Nicolle.
David Jolly, I think Yamiche is absolutely right. I mean, I think that all the polls that we have access to show this as a very tight race. I think it is the assessment, as Yamiche is reporting inside the Harris campaign, that this is a very, very tight race where every single news cycle matters, where every single door knocked on matters, where every single strategic decision could have implications on election day, where people are already voting. So everything that's happening in this context, in this climate, could be influencing someone's choice. Let me show you what the vice president had to say in Detroit today en route to Flint, where Yamiche is now.
We will not be fooled. We will not be gaslighted. Donald Trump's track record is a disaster for working people. And he's trying to gaslight people all over our country. But we know the facts, and we know the truth. He is an existential threat to America's labor movement. Just look at his track record to know. He said he was the only one who could bring back America's manufacturing jobs. Then America lost nearly 200,000 manufacturing jobs when he was president, making Donald Trump one of the biggest losers of manufacturing jobs in American history.
Again, this campaign making very thoughtful and very strategic decisions at this point because they know they have to.
That's right, Nicolle. And I think those remarks really shed some light on the diversity of this coalition that we were just talking about with Liz Cheney and others. Because I bet Liz Cheney would disagree with everything Vice President Harris just said there. Liz Cheney, understand, is just about the danger to the Constitution. I think there's something far more significant and impactful, indeed controversial, about the Liz Cheney piece of this coalition with the Vice President Harris, who is talking about Donald Trump busting unions, because Liz Cheney would probably be okay with that part. The controversial part is this. Liz Cheney stood in front of that crowd and said, I'm a Ronald Reagan conservative. But she was also a Donald Trump Republican. She stuck with him in 16 and 20. When Donald Trump said, Russia, are you listening? Invited Vladimir Putin to tamper in the 2016 election. When he called for the Muslim ban, when we learned about the Access Hollywood tape, when he gave the Helsinki conference, when he got impeached for the Ukraine-Russia scandal that he created to try to again interfere in the 2020 election, Liz Cheney was with him. Liz Cheney supported his appointments to the Supreme Court. Liz Cheney supported his tax cuts. It was only because of January 6th, she broke. She was not a never-Trumper. She is now a Trump is dangerous. And that is actually intriguing. That's not to slight Liz Cheney. It's to suggest that this coalition of people who are trying to beat Donald Trump is broadening, because you have Vice President's core message around values for an economy for all people, traditional democratic progressive values to lift up all people with access to the economy and healthcare and education. You have that traditional piece of the coalition. You then have this coalition of never-Trumpers that when they heard Donald Trump in 15 and 16 and 17 and so on said, absolutely not, I'm not a part of this party. But then you have this Liz Cheney lane that was a part of the party all the way to January 6th, and that makes her voice maybe the most powerful of all, to say, wait a minute, I actually was with Donald Trump.